Good morning and welcome. I'm Ann Wallace, a member of the Electronic Technology Committee, one of the committees that's sponsoring this talk. The other one is the Retirement Challenges and Opportunities Committee. Our speaker today is Chuck Henriksen, one of our members. He spent his whole career teaching gross anatomy, histology, neuroanatomy, and/or avian anatomy to students in schools of veterinary medicine at Purdue, North Carolina State, and most recently, UW-Madison. He is a PhD anatomist, not a veterinarian, who retired in 2009. In retirement, he still teaches a bit in the vet school, is a volunteer steward at the Arboretum, goes for a walk every morning in the Arboretum or some other good birding spot, and to make the walk more interesting, keeps a list of birds he sees and/or hears, and as a citizen scientist, submits that list to eBird at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Sorry. He leads a bird walk in the Arb every week of the year, leads birding field trips, and teaches a beginning birding class for the Madison Audubon Society. Yes, he's a self-described bird nerd. He and his wife volunteer for Saturday Science at the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery most every month, and he still helps teach the vet med major he started 18 years ago for the Grandparents University program. One final thing. I found a piece in last fall's issue of Isthmus that I wanted to share with you. There's a group called Community Shares of Wisconsin, which recognizes outstanding volunteers for their work in our community. And in October, one of the two volunteers recognized was Chuck, as a representative of the Madison Audubon Society. Let's welcome Chuck Henriksen.
Thank you. Is this working? This is working too, good. On the way to this program, I had my computer up on the seat, which is I should not have done, and someone came out, didn't stop at a stop sign. At least I didn't think she was going to stop. And I hit the brakes, and the computer hit the floor with a loud thunk, and I thought, oh, there goes my program completely. But luckily, we got it going. We couldn't get sound, but anyway, we're going to start. This is just an opening, some of the photos I have, and upper left for you is, every once in a while, I think you should put out your hand when you see a butterfly, because this one landed on my hand, and I don't know, I kind of love the salt, I'm sweaty hand, I don't know what it was, but that's a viceroy butterfly, not a monarch. And that's a barred owl in the Arboretum. We've been seeing it quite regularly. On the left lower corner, I have a thing about ice and ice formations, and I take it into Photoshop and I turn it all blue because it accentuates the patterns in ice. It's a fascinating, if the birding isn't good, I'll take pictures of ice and things like that. And on the right is a ruby-throated hummingbird taking nectar from, I think it's biennial Gora, and again in the Arboretum. Anyway, those are much better than what I have to present. No, that's not true. Okay, so the nature apps I wanted to emphasize today are Merlin, which is the bird app, and eBird. I'll link those two together and then talk a little bit about iNaturalists. So, how to find birds in nature. How to find nature apps, I'm sorry. It's easy, Google it, and you'll come up with lots of things, like, here's what comes up. Here's 14 apps that will turn even the most urban person into a naturalist in no time. 7 free apps for hikers, birders, and nature lovers. I mean, these are all great. 25 plus nature and wildlife mobile apps, and 10 Android apps every nature lover should. So if you want to learn about nature apps, just Google it, and lots of stuff will come up. So I made a handout today, and I put some of the nature apps on there, but there's many more. So go out and look for them, and you'll find probably 50 different ones, and I just selected a few of them. What in nature is the most interesting to you? Let's start with birds. That's my interest. I'm kind of forcing this on you, but it's my passion. How will you learn the birds? What birds do you want to learn first? The birds are coming to your feeder. That's a good place to start. Learn the feeder birds, and then move on from there. The birds around the lake or in the forest, in the woods, on the prairie. There are so many. How do I learn them? Here's an interesting statistic about birds. Should we start at the world level? That's not a good place to start, let me tell you. There's about 10,000 different species at the world level. It's amazing. How many species in the US? Oh, there's only 1,000. So we're getting smaller. That's a good sign. How many species were seen in 2019? 334 species were reported to eBird, but there are probably more than that. And how many species were seen in Dane County in 2019? About 272. So at least we're getting down to a number that you can handle now, right? 272? Well, maybe. Okay, how do I start? Okay, this is how we all started way back when. We started with the Peterson Guide in the middle, right? Classic guide. And then more recently, the Sibley's or the Crosley guides. And I would recommend them for you if you don't have some of these two that are right and left. I really like those particular guides. And I use them at home. I used to carry them, but now carrying books around is not my favorite thing to do because they're heavy. You can take a course for the Madison Audubon Society. I'm teaching a course coming up in the end of April and beginning of May. It's a 3-Saturday course. It's called Birding 101, and we teach it in the Arboretum. Or you could take or audit an ornithology course at UW. There may be other courses around the community, I'm not sure, but those are probably two options. You could go on an Audubon field trip. So this is obviously spring, one of the trees in bloom there, and this is a group that attended one of the field trips. I can't wait for spring. How about you? But wait, are you one of these? Or one of these? Like me? No, I am with it, hip and modern. There's an app for identifying and learning birds. So that's the really cool part, I think. It's called Merlin, okay? Merlin Bird Identification App. And it's primarily for beginners and intermediates. So I don't tend to use it myself, but I certainly recommend it for anybody who wants to start out in learning birds. And many of us are grandparents, and I think this is a way to hook your grandchildren into birding as well by using the Merlin app, either showing them, and depending on the age of the kids, I don't know if they all have iPhones or cell phones of some sort, but starting with Merlin, I think you might capture their interest, and hopefully they would get out in nature more rather than staying at their computer inside. So the first topic I want to talk about is Merlin, the Bird ID app. And by the way, that's a cedar waxwing on the left and a eastern bluebird on the right. So Merlin is an app that is put out by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It gets very high ratings, and the great plus is that it's free, so you can go in and download it, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So if you have an iPhone, you go to the App Store app. If you have an Android, I don't have an Android type phone, so I don't know if this is quite correct. You go on Play Store and you do a search for, rather than going through all the apps that are there, if you search immediately for Merlin Bird ID, you'll find the app and push the Get button, because this is a freebie. Push the Get button, enter your password, and then install. And it downloads by, probably all of you are familiar, by sort of a circle that becomes blacker and blacker and blacker, and finally when it's all downloaded, the whole circle is black. Then find the Merlin app on your phone. It'll be someplace on one of the pages. And you can open it and then go out and find a bird that you'd like to identify. So let's pretend that we saw this bird. I think most people know this bird, but we're going to test the system. So whenever you find a bird like this, you have to remember its size, you have to remember its colors, you have to remember where you saw it, because that'll be important in running the app. So on the first page of the app, this is what the app looks like when you open up Merlin, okay? And you have 3 choices. You can start bird ID, in which case they'll ask 5 questions about the bird that you saw. Or you can have a photo ID if you've taken a photo of it, or have a photo on your phone, on your cell phone. Or you can explore all the birds in the area, and I'll talk about each one of those. First question that you have to respond to is, where did you see the bird? And you can put in where you are, you could put in Madison, you could put in the UW Arboretum, let's say, you could put in the UW Lakeshore Nature Preserve. You could look at a current location. You can actually look at a map, and it'll show a map, and it'll put a pin on where you are. And once you start using it, you might have a list of places that you've entered before, so you could push on one of those, okay? And the next question is, when did you see the bird? Was it today? Was it March 4th, for instance? Or any other month? You could put something that you saw some time ago, if you wanted to do that. Then you have to identify a size. So you start out with sparrow, and the far left, yes, far left. Was it sparrow sized or smaller? Was it in between a sparrow and a robin? The next figure over is a robin. Was it a robin size, or was it in between the robin and a crow? The next one over. And it was a crow size, or was it in between a crow and a goose, say a Canada goose? Or was it a goose or larger? So you tap on it and it puts a check on the size of the bird. Okay, then it'll ask you what are the main colors, and you can do, if it's a single color like a crow, let's say, you press the black button. Now our pretend bird was black and white with a little gray, so you do black, gray, and white, those 3 across the top, and then move on. If it has more colors than that, pick out the main 3 colors. You can't go with more than 3. All right. Okay, let's see, question 4. Yeah, question 5 is, what was the bird doing essentially? Was it eating at your feeder? So maybe it's a feeder bird. Was it swimming? Maybe it's a waterfowl of some sort, or wading, a shorebird. Was it on the ground, in the trees or bushes, on the fence, wire, and so on? Answer one of those, touch the appropriate choice, and move on. So Merlin then creates a list of possible birds, and the list may be short, or it can be fairly long. In this case, it gave me, for the bird in question that we pretended, it gave me a list of 15 different birds. So you scan the list of birds, and find the one that most closely resembles the bird that you saw, and you punch on that bird. So I thought these 2 were the most closely associated with the bird I saw. And then I chose, well, I think it's a black-capped chickadee, all right? So if you couldn't find the bird in that list, you might need to edit some of your previous choices. So then you might go back and say, well, maybe I didn't have the colors quite right, so I could edit that, or something maybe I didn't have the size quite right, so I could edit that. But I think this looks most like the black-capped chickadee. So then you go on to the next page after you've chosen your bird, and it gives you all kinds of information about the chickadee itself, okay? And then at the bottom you touch, yes, this is my bird, I found it. Okay, and then it can congratulate you on identifying the bird correctly. It also shows the speaker at the bottom, so you can actually hear the sound of the bird that you chose. And you could save it to your list if you do submit to eBird, and I'll show that in a bit. And you can even send it to your grandkids. This is what I saw this morning. Isn't this exciting? Don't you want to start learning birds? You know, that sort of thing. Okay, back to the first page. If you don't want to do Start the Bird ID, you can use the second choice. Photo ID. Show a photo of the bird you don't know but have a photo of. And you can take the photo at that time, or you can do something that I do. Let's see, you can take the photo. I don't know how good your cell phone takes photos of birds. It's kind of iffy. Or you can choose a photo that you took before. And I take photos with my other camera. I can put it on my iPhone, that sort of thing. And then I can draw that up to Merlin, and it will identify it for you. And really, that turns out to be the best, because I don't think I get good bird photos. Can I get close enough with my iPhone to be able to take a picture of a bird? And if it's too distant, you know, it's about a mile away, and I took a picture of it, and it's a little dot there, and not enough information to be able for Merlin to identify it. So you need to zoom in on your bird to get a good photo for it to analyze. And here's what I said about trying to get a photo with the bird with your iPhone. Okay, back to the first page. There's a third choice, and it's called Explore Birds. Now this one, I don't know, to me this isn't. So the last choice is explore all the birds in your area. Okay, guess how big that list is. This time of year, maybe not so big, but during migration, you might have to look through 200 birds. Is that very efficient? I don't think so, but that's up to you. You can try it. But going through all those birds to find your bird, I don't think it's very efficient. So I think the first choice or the second choice might be much better. Okay. So, do you think you know enough about Merlin to give it a try? Any questions right now about Merlin? Does anybody have Merlin on their phone? Ah, great. Have you tried it? Does it work pretty well?
And I was going to note that if you go to what's the last one, pine bird?
Yeah.
Ours actually only shows us the birds that are likely birds in Madison. So there must be a way, if you enter your location, that it'll stream the list down to a more manageable amount.
Yes, and that's where eBird comes in. I'll make the connection soon, okay? But very good point. Right. It only shows you birds that are being seen in Madison now, but how does it know that? And that's the question, and that's where eBird comes in. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. So the second topic is eBird, and this is what I do a lot. If you don't recognize these two, it's a red-winged blackbird and sandhill crane, and by the way, they're beginning to come. Yesterday I heard red-winged blackbirds in the Arboretum on Curtis Prairie singing already, so they've just arrived. Sandhill cranes have been coming in. I'd say I saw my first one about a week ago down just south of here, but they're coming, and if you hear them, what they're saying to you is look up. You got to look up, because many times we're looking at birds at our eye level and forget to look up. But if you hear the sound of a sandhill crane, that's the time to look up. And I've only seen singles so far, but larger groups will be coming soon. Okay, eBird. How does Merlin know what birds are in the area of your unknown bird? Okay, this is what I want to try to develop. That's where eBird comes in. eBird was developed by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's a huge database. Probably over 1 million checklists are supplied every year by people from all over the world. So it's probably the largest citizen science project in the world as well. Submitting sightings to eBird requires a little bit better knowledge. This isn't necessarily for a novice. I would start with Merlin first, and then once you become confident, you can start submitting to eBird. And they have a simple project going on called Feeder Watch, and this is a good way to start. You submit the birds at your feeder. First, you have to learn the birds at your feeder to be able to identify them, and you can submit to Feeder Watch, and then develop from there. So, how are birds sightings submitted to eBird? There's two ways. By going to the website, ebird.org, you can submit your sightings, or by using the eBird mobile app. Okay. Most of the young people have it on their phone and submit via their phone, by their cell phone. I am the dinosaur in the room and submit the old-fashioned way. I keep a notebook, looks like this, and the other day I cut my fingers, so there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears involved with this. So, but this is how I keep the record. Every day I go out, which I do every day, by the way, I record what I see. Now, this was recorded on May 30th, and this is almost the peak of migration. So the number of birds you see at that time of year is I have 51 species up there. But what I record, this was actually one of my Tuesday morning bird walks, 30th of May, UW Arboretum. It's, we birded from 6 to 11. You know, when the birding is really good, time flies by. And that was one of those mornings. We saw lots of birds, and it was so exciting. And you look up and we've been out birding 5 hours already. You wouldn't know. It seemed like 15 minutes. It was so much fun. I record the temperature and sunny breeze from the west. And then I use a 4-letter code for all the birds, okay? Anybody know what an AMRO is? American robin, yes. And you have to know the proper names. It's not just a robin, it's an American robin. That's a specific bird. It's not just a northern cardinal. I probably saw one. It's not just a cardinal, it's a northern cardinal, because there are other types of cardinals. So you have to know what the name of the bird is, proper name of the bird, to be able to record. Now, you can record it under any 4-letter code you'd like. But I used to write out all the birds' names. Took forever, and my list was a mess. So this, if you wrote 51 species up there and wrote them all out, that would be a mess. So this helps keep it in a semi-neat format. That was a good day. That was a really fun day. Okay. And then I go home with my pocket, and I open up eBird, and that's where I enter all the information that I saw at the Arboretum, all the birds I saw. Yep, the good younger birders use the eBird mobile app, and that saves them a whole step. But if someone asks me, what'd you see the other day? I've got my little notebook, and they can't do that as quick as I can. So in that sense, I can, even though I'm a dinosaur, I can look up things pretty quickly. So I'm not going to show you the app. It's kind of similar to Merlin in the sense that you have to give the date, the location, but you have to be able to identify all the birds that you see and then include the number of species as well. It is a free app, so that's a good point about it. But I would suggest if you use eBird, you might try it on your birds that come to your feeder. You probably know what those birds are, and try that first, and then move on from there as you become more confident in identifying birds. Okay, so let's move on to explaining what eBird is. This is how, when I open up eBird, this is my home page. This is the home page, and when you open it up, it will be similar. They'll always have some photograph of a bird, but it will be similar. But this gives some information about my statistics, okay? In the upper left-hand corner of the blue screen, the blue part, it indicates that I have 535 species that I've observed, and this is from all over the world that I've been, let's say. I've contributed 4,126 checklists, And that I started about 10 years ago, eBird. So over the 10 years, I've submitted many checklists. Checklists are my lists of birds. And I included 243 photos of different species. I probably included a lot more than that. I didn't do any sound recording. Some people record the sounds of the birds, and they can submit those as well. And lastly, I have 818 days of submissions in a row. So I have 2 years. I'm a real bird nerd. Remember that part? So 818 days, that's 2 years and about 2 or 3 months or something like that. Yeah, anyway, even when I travel. One of my bird lists was 2 sparrows, house sparrows inside an airport. You know, anyway, it's funny. Some of them are my feeder birds, so too. If I can't get out that day, I'll do my feeder birds as my submission. Anyway, note the buttons at the top, because the 3 buttons at the top that I'd like to point out are Submit, Explore, and My eBird. So I'll just talk about on those 3 topics. So if I wanted to submit, they ask the same questions that are similar to Merlin. Where did you bird? So on this particular day, I think I made up a day or something. But many times I'm at the Arboretum. I steward there, so I go there quite often. I do my stewarding, but mainly I do my birding. And so I put UW-Madison Arboretum in there, general, as opposed to specific parts of it. So, and then you can also, in any county, you can look up, say, put Dane County in there. A map comes up, and there are pins around Dane County. And just click on the pin where you are, and maybe it'll be Governor Nelson State Park or Pheasant Branch or that sort of thing. And that's where you're birding. So it has to know where you're birding, first of all. Secondly, you want to know date and effort. So I put in the date. This was the February 28th, 2000. And then observation type. The only 2 I use are either traveling, most of the time I'm walking, or stationary. I might be at University Bay with my spotting scope, and so I'd be stationary. So those are the 2 that I use. I don't use the other ones. I started at 7 in the morning. Quite often that's about this time I start. I birded for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I walked 2 miles that day. And then I was by myself, okay? And then I might add some other things on there, maybe the temperature or what the weather's like. There were 6 to 8 inches of snow, which will be gone soon, I hope. And then parts of the Arboretum I walked in. So that's my date and effort that I add to eBird page. And then you need to enter your birds, okay? So my 4-letter code works. When I put in the 4-letter code, if I have the right code, it'll come up and show wood duck, and then I could just say enter, and it will go to the lists on the left and find wood duck. Okay, I didn't show that on this one. I've already entered Canada geese. I saw 2 Canada geese and 6 mallards, but the list goes on down. Okay, so I enter all my birds that I saw. And then next, it makes a final list. You look at the list to see that you've entered everything correctly, and that makes a final list. And at this point, it might ask, do you want to add some photos? In this case, I added a photo of a sharp-shinned hawk, and you can add sound if you'd like to, but here's my final list, or part of it anyway, and that's called the checklist, and that goes into my, since I have a what's called my eBird, it goes into mine, but it also goes into something that everyone can see, and I'll show you that as well. Okay, so here's my whole checklist. Check it out. I added 3 photos. There were 15 species, that sort of thing. Okay, so back to the home page, and look at the hot buttons. I did the submit already. Now I'd like to explore to see what else other people have found. And I look at Explore every day to see what other people have found. So you click on Explore, and it brings up this page, okay? And most of the time I go to Explore Regions and type in Dane. If you type in Dane, that stands for Dane County, and it will bring up a page that shows only what's been seen in Dane County, and it looks like this. So what was seen in Dane County the day before is the whole column on the left, and the present day shows people who have submitted on the present day. So what's on the left is always one day behind, okay? So it's a list of all the birds that were seen on the day before, plus others if you go down further. So all of the birds are blue. And what that means is that you can click on a bird and it'll bring you to a page which shows maybe 4, 5, 6 different photos of that particular bird. Say you've never heard of number 13 is a brown creeper. How many know what a brown creeper is? Good. But if you don't know what a brown creeper is, you click on that and you can see photos of it and description of it and all kinds of information. Maybe too much. Also, it shows the number of each of those species that was seen, and it shows the date. If you click on the date, it'll show the list of birds that person saw. Cynthia Bridge, I know some of these people. Cynthia Bridge saw. If you click on the person, it goes to a biographical page, something about the bird or him or herself. Over on the right-hand side, then, is recent visits. So those are the ones that they've just submitted the day that you're looking at it. If you mouse over the little balloons or pins or whatever you want to call those, is there a special name for that column of little things, pins, balloons, whatever? If you mouse over them, that'll show you where they birded. And the last one shows how many species that particular person saw. Okay, so that gives you an idea what's happening in Dane County. Right down at the bottom, more recent visits, right down at the bottom of that list. If you click on that, then it brings up all the people and their recent lists and where they went birding, and over on the side, how many species they saw when they went birding at that particular site. Okay, in the Explore page, there are a variety of things you can do. You can search photos and sounds, and I'll show you a picture of that, but searching, if you click on that, it'll show you submissions, pictures of birds that people submit all over the world. And it's just fun to go through all those photos to see what people are seeing all over the world. See some really strange, very interesting birds. Secondly, bar charts. I've made a bar chart for the Arboretum. Every year I make a bar chart of what birds are seen in the Arboretum for the whole year. And I have, not a handout, but a copy of that today, and I can show that, I put it on display. Alerts lets me know birds in Dane County that I haven't seen yet. And it shows the people who saw them and where to go to see that particular bird. Right now, I haven't seen the greater white-fronted goose. And it's down at Mud Lake right now, and I haven't seen it yet, so I've got to go down to Lower Mud Lake to see it if I want to add it to my list. Top 100, I'm embarrassed about this. Top 100 people in the world, in the United States, in Wisconsin, and in Dane County. So if you're into competitive birding, this is what you want to keep up on. And I sort of am, I guess. And submission map, that shows the whole world, and I've got that shows the whole world, and every time someone submits a checklist, there's a bullet that lights up and then goes away, and I'll show you that as well. Okay, here we go. So if you do search photos and sounds, This is just a montage of photos of birds from all over the world, and locally too, for that matter. So just some interesting birds. You can click on each one of these. I mean, everybody knows what a mallard looks like, so that's not interesting. But how about the one I like is in the second row, the second one from the left, okay? Just an unusual bird. I can't remember the name of the bird, but it was some exotic place, and I thought, oh, that is really a cool looking bird. Anyway, you can click on those. You can go through birds until you get bored. I don't get bored looking at that. But anyway, you can search by location. You could do just Wisconsin birds, or you could search by the photographer. A couple of good photographers of birds, Mike Bailey and Kenny Younger, friends of mine. I want to look at their photos because their photos are great. You can search by just a bird species. You can search by, show me all the sandhill crane photos that were submitted, so I could do that. Anyway, lots of good stuff. A bar chart, this is the bar chart for the Arboretum that they provide this, and then I download this and make a bar chart. But so this is all parts of the Arboretum, seen in 2019, and it goes by species, okay? And it goes month by month by month by month, January through December. When they arrive, I mean, Canada geese are here all the time. Mallards are here all the time. They're not necessarily on the ground in the Arboretum, but fly over or in Lake Wingra, let's say. But if you wanted to see when the tundra swans are coming, you know, they were in University Bay, and not in the Arboretum, but if you did University Bay, you could see when they are there, when certain other birds are there. But all 184 species, where is that? Right at the top, right above snow goose there, 184 species were seen in the Arboretum in 2019, and then you can tell when they come and go. So I think that's a powerful tool. All right, top 100. Okay, I'm 8,498th in the U.S. So proud of that. That's always funny. There's a lot of birds other places than in Dane County, so this isn't a high number for it. This is where I am right now. So this is January and February, right? Be much better in Texas and Florida and that sort of thing. Oh, in Wisconsin, I'm 12th, and in Dane County, I'm 6th. And so I know all these people that I'm competing with too, by the way. So it's a fun thing to do. All right, if you want to do that. This is the one that just, so if you go to submission map, here's the whole world, all right? See the whole world. Look at the United States, this is pretty small, but do you see the yellow dots? See the yellow dots with a ring around it? Everybody see that? Oh gosh. The United States is the far left, by the way. This is a test of your knowledge of the world. Far left, okay, there's yellow spots with a ring around it. And that means that somebody in those 5, 6 areas just submitted a checklist, all right? And it appears and a yellow ring around it, and then it becomes a white dot. So all the white areas are checklists that particular day only, and they've already submitted it, and you can see Spain looks pretty heavy. There are a lot of birders there, in India and border of Australia and that sort of thing. But U.S. has the most, of course. But so the yellow dots are the ones that are submitted. I tried to find a time when they all submitted at about the same time. All right, and this was on the 28th of February, and it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and according to our time, 12 o'clock at Cornell, then it starts over again. So there's a number up in the right-hand corner. You see that number up there? 27,000. That's how many checklists have been submitted that day. So normally there are between 20 and 40,000 checklists per day. If you multiply that by 365, you can imagine how many checklists are submitted over a year's period. I think that's pretty impressive. Okay. Back to the home page, and this time we'll look at My eBird. And this is when you sign up for it, they keep track of all your birds. So this is my home page, let's say, in eBird. So at the top, there's my life list, 535 species I've seen over the 10 years that I've been submitting. Then here's down further, it shows the counties I've seen birds in, both my life list and on this particular year and even on this particular month. The next thing I look at quite often is manage my checklist. Over on the right-hand side, manage my checklist. That's all it shows all the checklists I've submitted since 2010. So it keeps all this information for you. You don't have to write it down and use my pocket thing or anything like that. It keeps all your information for you. But this is all public as well. Not my particular list, but all this information is on the website that keeps track of all the birds. All right. If I open up manage my checklist, here are all my checklists. Here are all 4,178 checklists that I started on the 29th of February. So you can go back and edit them. You can go back and look at any particular day. You can go back and look at any particular site. So it's a powerful tool, really powerful. All right. Oh, this is so cool. Another thing that they've been working on is what they call abundance animation. Let's hope this works. But based on submissions for the ruby-throated hummingbird, they can make an animation of how the hummingbirds come up into the United States and then how they go back down again. And look at where it says week of year, it goes January, February, March. So those are the months all through December, okay? And as that goes across there, you can see what the hummingbirds do during migration. Let's see if this works. Come on. Oh, man. Yes, there. This is good. All right. So this is in, right now, we're starting in January. This is where the hummingbirds are right now. Central America, maybe a little bit in Mexico. And as that bar sweeps across, you can see what happens to the hummingbirds. Middle of the summer, and then in the fall. Isn't that cool? And they've done this for many species of birds now. I think that's just exciting. So, and based on all the information that people submit, they know where the birds are, and they can make this animation of how they come up in the spring, where they are in the summer, and then in the fall, how they go back. And what's missing here is that most of these hummingbirds will go across the Gulf of Mexico. They'll fly 500 miles. They have to double their weight before they make that trip across. So there's nobody out in the Gulf of Mexico recording where those, so it doesn't appear, but they do fly across the Gulf. That's also an amazing feat. Okay. One way that I use eBird, which is kind of fun, wherever we go in the country, I always look at the county where we're going to visit. So my son and his family live in Alameda, California, which is in Alameda County, and besides visiting them, I was doing a little birding on the side, and I want to know what birds I might see. So I can go to Alameda County, I can explore, put in Alameda, and it brings up all the birds that they're seeing in Alameda County right now. So I can see the birds. Maybe there's a couple I don't know. I can click on them. This is what they look like. And when I go out there, I have some idea what I might see. So I can do that, everybody. There's one caveat. You might find a county in Wisconsin that you're going to visit. Maybe there's no eBirders there. So maybe it isn't a great list that you'll find for there. But if you're going to a populated area, especially around San Francisco, a lot of birders, lots of submissions, you probably find lots of good things. Okay. how does Merlin use eBird to identify unknown birds? And this is sort of what your question was. It's from all the checklists that people like me submit for any particular day, and then Merlin will check those lists and try to match what you're seeing now to what birds are being seen and submitted to eBird. So that's how Merlin works, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. How can you use eBird? Okay, if you want to learn how to identify birds in Dane County, go to ebird.org, tap Explore. Under Explore Region, put in Dane County, and then you'll see what's being seen right on that particular day or the day before. Okay? What does eBird do? These are statements from eBird itself. eBird transforms a global birding community's passion for birds into critical data for research, conservation, and education. eBird data contribute to hundreds of conservation decisions and peer-reviewed papers, thousands of student projects, and helps to inform research worldwide. It's pretty powerful. Go to ebird.org and tap on Science to find out how this information is used. Don't have time to explain all that. So one thing I'd like to point out to people, this just recently, the scientists from Cornell published a paper in Science. And from that data that they've been collecting all this time, they found that over a 50-year period, 1970 to 2020, that there were 10 billion birds in North America in 1970. In 2020, there are now 7 billion birds. That's a loss of 3 billion birds over that 50-year period. 30% of our birds, this is all birds, not species, but all birds, we've lost 30% of our birds. Primarily due to loss of habitat, but there's all kinds of other things like feral cats or letting cats outside. They just have the genetics to kill birds, whether they're hungry or not. Bird building crashes. Things like that, use of insecticides, loss of food for birds, a variety of things. So I think birds are maybe in a critical state, and that anything we can do to help them, we should try to do. Okay, topic number 3. This one it's a monarch butterfly this time on a zinnia. And a couple of squirrels coming out of their hole, baby squirrels that was at the Arboretum, right down by Big Springs, turned around. Oh, look at these little guys. So how do we identify all these species? Well, that's where iNaturalist come in. iNaturalist is set up to identify both plants and animals, okay? iNaturalist started with joint initiative by the California Academy of Sciences and National Geographic Society, and you're connected with a community of over 750,000 scientists and naturalists who can help you identify things out in nature. So it's a powerful tool. It's a community effort. It's sort of crowdsourced sort of app. When you download the iNaturalist app and start it, it will ask you to create an account, or you can create an account online, all right? So read through the FAQs. Also realize that all your photos that you take with your iPhone or an Android phone will be downloaded to your account. So here's the icon for the app, and once you open this up, go down to the bottom of the screen. It has a camera icon, so open that up and it takes over your camera in your iPhone, and you can take a picture of maybe a plant, a bird, a deer, a raccoon, whatever you want to take a picture of. And the next page it'll say, what did you see? Okay, and then it comes up with, it has a huge file of all the different plants and animals wherever you are, and it can suggest what it might be. And I've just started this last fall, so I haven't had many plants this winter. I wonder why. Anyway, I look forward to looking for and using it in the spring when the plants really start coming out. I know some of the plants in the Arboretum, so I tested it to see how good it was, and it did a wonderful job. So here's a photo I took of a cup plant over, and it shows a map there, and it doesn't show it well, but I did that over in, where did I do that? I think it was Lake Farm. Yeah, down at the bottom it shows Lake Farm. That's where I took the picture, and you can see other pins there, and you can click on those, and other people have found things around that area as well. You can look to see what that is. So I put down cup plant, or I chose cup plant. They give you a choice. I put down cup plant, and there was another guy that's right below mine that verified that. He said, yeah, you got it right, cup plant. There's sometimes I get it wrong, and so another person will make a suggestion as to what they think it is, and I'll correct mine, let's say, because I think I agree with that person, and it corrects it for you. So I just went through and took some photos here. This is a American trumpet vine, and that's where I took the picture. It's on the map there. I put an American trumpet vine, and somebody agreed with me down there as well. Okay. And so it goes. All right. Here's an insect. It's a American polycinid. Is that how you pronounce? Wasp. That's how I had no idea what it was, but I chose that because it brings up a picture, and I said, yeah, that looks like it. And somebody agreed with my identification. All right. As I said, I just started using it, so in the spring when things start coming, I'll start using it again, and try it on all different things. But it's a great one. It's a very popular app for most biology types that want to identify the things around them. So it's lots of fun to use, and I think it'd be great for grandkids too. Yes.
Does it just have naturally occurring plants, or does it have cultivars of domesticated plants?
They discourage that. Okay. Yeah, it's more for wildflowers and that sort of thing, and not so much for horticultural varieties and zoo animals and things like that. So.
Well, would it recognize?
It may. I haven't tried it, so I don't know. You could try it yourself, see what you get, but it's more for out in nature and in the wild. Yeah. Try it though, All right. Other apps, and I suggest looking at your handout. There are so many out there. When I went online looking for them, I thought, boy, there's quite a few. So, yeah, and I tried out my astronomy app. Astronomy apps are great fun, and again, working with the grandkids on that, it's lots of fun. I went out the other night, pointed at the sky, and it connected the dots, so to speak, of the stars, and then it showed a cartoon of what the constellation was, and that's a great fun. I thought about this, and I thought it would be fun to have a second one if you wanted to do that. Everybody download Merlin, eBird, iNaturalist, try it out, and come back and let's have a talk about that. Let's see if it works well or not. I don't know if you're interested in that. We'll ask Ann. But my wife thought of this a couple days ago. Why didn't you ask the whole group to download these things? And I thought, see this big red spot in front of my. Why didn't I think of that? So I'm sorry I didn't do that. That would have been fun. I could have put pictures up there. You could have taken a picture of whatever it was I put up there and then see if it could identify it, either bird or a plant, let's say. I don't know if you wanted to see anything more, but just have a, this is bird related. You know how I am at birds. Let's see if I could show you. Let's do this one. Let's just a couple birds and a couple stories that I have. Now let's see. I wanted to go back. Okay. If you bear with me, here's the barn swallow migration. This is abundance animation again. I think these are so cool. I spend all day looking at animation. Okay, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Like that? I think that's really cool. Anyway, where are all the species found? So this is a list of who has the most species. So everybody needs to go to Colombia because they have 1,803 species. Peru, Brazil, Ecuador. The United States is down in 10th place, but they've certainly produced a lot of checklists. This is the number of checklists that have been produced. Another really great thing to follow migration is called NexRad images, and it's really fun. This is on May 16th at 7 at night, and most of this is weather information. But at 10 o'clock, this is what it looks like at 10 o'clock, and all those blue things are birds migrating. They can actually tell that these are birds now, and birds migrating. Boy, if you saw this at 10 o'clock at night, go out birding the next morning because there'll be a bunch of migrants coming. We did this, it's called Wisconsin Birdathon with 3 other guys, or 2 other guys, or 3 of us. It's a 24-hour period to go out birding. We didn't quite go out 24 hours, but I started at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was over in the Arboretum. We had looked at this. This is what it looked like the night before. So the birds are coming. They're going to be, look at all over Wisconsin. It looks great. They're in circles because that's where the radar thing is. It's not really circular, but it's just because of the radar and how the beam goes around. So we got there the next morning. We thought we might be able to see 125 species in one day. And we thought that was a reach, really reach. So got there at 4 o'clock in the morning, poured rain for an hour. I thought, oh my God, this could be awful. Well, it turned out to be great because what happened, all these migrated birds were brought down to ground. The rain brought them all down. We spent the day birding in bird heaven. We ended up with 168 species that day because we knew something was going to happen and the rain brought all those birds down. 168 in one day it was phenomenal. We were over the moon, and those people who sponsored us on So Much a Bird, they lost a lot of money that day. But the Natural Resources Foundation gained a lot, so it was good. So that's fun. This time of year, as I said, watch for sand-hill cranes. They're coming, and unfortunately the sound doesn't work. We tried to make it work, but the sound doesn't work. But you know the sound of sand-hill cranes, so listen for them. They're coming. They're coming. In the Arboretum, not last year, but the year before, we had a pair of sand-hill cranes that had a baby. Do you see the little guy down in the grass? Yeah. And we were able to watch it grow and be fed by these their parents. It was a great time. And at the end of the season in October, all 3 flew off together. And last summer, all 3 came back. And the parents tried to get rid of the young. And you go on your own now. And it's time to kick them out of the nest. How appropriate, huh? Kick them out of the nest on their own. So, yeah. And this was in the parking lot. I was walking, and they walked. And I liked the one on the right because I think the little one is asking, "Can I eat this, Mom?" You know, they're looking at it there. Anyway. Oh yeah, one day we were in, another birder and I were in Longnecker Garden, fairly open, and this was in the fall, and so the sandhill cranes were migrating. And and they were calling too, luckily. So whenever you hear a bird call, you look up, otherwise you might miss something. So we looked up. One group of, 20 sandhill cranes went by. So then we heard another group. We looked up, another group of 20. And then the third group came, and they were calling, and we looked up. And we looked up, and we thought, oh, well, that's interesting. There are a couple in that group that look a little bit different. You see it? 2 white ones with black tips. And you have ideas? Whooping cranes. We'd never seen one fly over the Arboretum. And it was a flock of sandhill cranes with 2 whooping cranes in there. So that was a special day for a birder, let me tell you. We celebrated that one. Oh, I'm sorry. How are we doing on time? Tell me when to stop. This was in our yard, and it had just snowed 3 inches or something, and this is below, the squirrel is seen below the feeder trying to find some food, you know. And the crow would like to have some of that food too, and this is what happened. I like 1-minute photos because it shows a lot. And we were in the house, and if the volume, you can hear hilarious. He's trying to grab his tail or something. He's just crowing at him constantly. Move out of the way so I can get some of that food. Squirrel's not buying it. Anyway, I like 1-minute videos. It says a lot about behavior. I think he gets really pretty close. I don't know if the squirrel got the crow, what he'd do with it. Anyway, a lot of turkeys in the Arboretum, so in the spring, these guys are strutting their stuff for the females, and the females just walk right on by. It's so funny to watch. But at some point, they must succumb because we have little ones in the Arboretum too. I like twofer photographs, so to find a deer and a wild turkey was pretty good, but I missed the photograph because ahead of that, that's a mama, ahead of that were about 10 little ones that are in the weeds off to the side, so I really missed the real photo, but this is what I got. And this is what I call my 2-headed turkey. You see the normal head of the turkey, but do you look on the side of to me there's a human head on the side of the wing there. Can you see that? Or is that too much imagination? Do you see that? Do you see it? Well, he's got a special layered hat on, and you can see the face. He's facing that direction, and got a nose, and I don't know. That's me. Sorry. This is an interesting one. This is pileated woodpecker, and if you've ever seen one, they're fantastic. They're beautiful birds. But in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, February 13th, I think it was, they reported a special pileated woodpecker along the Milwaukee River. And it's called a leucistic bird. A leucistic bird is a genetic mutation that quite often is seen as white patches on a bird. But this pileated woodpecker, and it only affects the feathers, the feet, the eye, the bill are not affected at all. So it's leucistic and not it's not an albino. But this is the bird that they took a photo of. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. Yeah, one of a kind. Yep. So it still had the red crest on the top, and the eyes were colored, and the beak was colored. It only affects the pigmentation of the feathers. So there's a deficiency in somehow getting the pigmentation from the melanocytes to the keratinocytes. And then, so I asked my birding group, has anybody else seen a leucistic bird? And this is what I got. This is a ruby-throated hummingbird that's leucistic as well. Yeah, pretty amazing.
How well do birds like that fare? Do they?
You know, I would think this would be a target. You know, it really shows up. So we don't, evidently the pileated woodpecker, being large, has been around for 4 or 5 years. So it's done well. The little hummingbird, I don't know, I think that would be a marked bird, so to speak. So I don't know how that would do. It's hard to follow these birds, so you don't know the answer to that question, I'd say. Okay, this is another one. Anybody know what's happening here? Anybody identify the bird first?
Chickadee.
Yeah. What? Black-capped chickadee, yes. It's not just any chickadee, it's the black-capped chickadee. This was over on Carver Street. He was down on the ground working this, whatever it is. Any ideas? What is he collecting, first of all? What does it look like?
Rabbit fur?
Rabbit fur, exactly. But he's not collecting it from the rabbit. Scat, exactly. This is coyote scat. It's been on the ground for a while. The scat is poop, by the way. It's been on the ground for a while. It's been washed pretty well. And now he's pulling out. He had to work so hard on that. And he worked so hard, he sat right down on his rear end on the far left side. And this is the last thing they put in their nests. They make lots of moss, and the last thing, the softest part, is the little rabbit fur. So that was really cool. Snowy owls. Anybody seen a snowy owl this year? All right. In the past, though. Okay, in the past. That's good. There's been one at the north end of the airport. It's been seen for the past couple months. I think it may still be there. Took me 6 times before I saw it. I saw lots of white plastic bags out there that looked like snowy owls. And I finally saw the one that had feathers and that sort of thing. This is a picture I took several years ago, one up in Wanakee. Yeah, the theory at first was this is a bird that comes down, they're called eruptions, comes down into Wisconsin and into North America. They're high in the tundra, that's where they breed, and they thought there was not enough food up there, and that's why they came down. Well, this is what the food resources are. They're lemmings. Yeah. And there's not a lack of food. There's plenty of food. This is the nest, so you can see the eggs in the center, all lemmings around there for food. So there was plenty of food. There's too many snowy owls. The production that year, lots of birds survive. So the parents say, get out of here, go find, here, it's the same, great. It's time to leave, you have to go find your own food source, so they'll come down into the United States. And that's how they, in that case, it's not a lack of food, it's too much food, so you have overproduction of birds. This was last year, funny story. One of the snowy owls came down. There he's on the left-hand side. He's out in the middle of Lake Wingra. Somebody called the rescue squad or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. There's an injured bird on Lake Wingra. And I found out about it through another birder. So I went over there, and here comes the rescue squad. And so one of the guys got all suited up, and this was in March, so things were beginning to melt. He got all suited up in a wetsuit. He had ropes on him to shore. He had a kayak he was pushing out there. And I told him, this is kind of normal for snowy owls. They're in the tundra. There are no trees. They're on the ground all the time. This is normal. No. This is an injured bird. So out they go onto the, carefully out there, and men on the shore holding the lines and stuff like that in case he fell through the ice. And he got within, 10, 15 feet. the bird got up and flew down the lake and landed on the lake about 100 feet down. And now do you believe me? So there was no problem with this one, but it makes a great story. I love that one. Bluebirds. Oh, yes, okay. This is a good story too. Upland sandpipers. I have ultimate control over nature, right? We all do? Yeah. Upland sandpipers, that's interesting. I think I forgot my cell phone. I was going to play you this sound. They go, ooh. That's the sound they make. But anyway, so we were at Thompson Prairie on F, and the upland sandpipers were around. And if you've ever been to Thompson, there's a big valley, and then on top, and then there's this huge rock pile. This is not a place to farm. Huge rock pile that the farmers created many years ago. And we walked down and we walked up and we heard the upland sandpipers coming. And we just froze. And they landed on the rock pile. Not too far from, say from here to the door, I'd say we were that close or far away. And 3 of them, they were on the rock pile. And so I wanted to take a photo, but I thought, well, I don't like the alignment. Can one of you get on the top and then one get a little bit down further and then one down here like this and about equal distance apart, and about to take the photo, I said, okay, everybody look to the left. So that's my story about how I control nature, but that was just a lucky, opportunistic shot, and it worked out really well. And these are rare guys. You don't see them very often. And isn't that perfect, though? They're all, anyway. Okay. I think that's enough. Let me close on that one and take questions or, take a break or whatever you'd like to do. Thank you very much. Questions?
Chuck has promised to answer questions, so we'll start with Kathy.
Chuck, are the whooping cranes coming now? Because on my way here this morning, I saw birds about the size of sandhill cranes, which I see all the time.
Right.
But they were white with the black tips, and I thought, what the heck are those?
No, tundra swans.
Tundra swans.
The tundra swans are still here. They, if you saw University Bay before it froze over, there were tundra swans in the bay there, and when that froze over, they went to Lower Mud Lake. And just a couple days ago, I counted 574 of them, something like that. So they're still around. There's open water there because the Yahara River comes in and goes out in there. So they might have been, that's what I'd say they were. They're tundra swans. Could be trumpeters too, but mostly tundras. Yep. She's got the microphone. Just a second.
On an eBird, you record a lot of things. You record weather, the weather conditions while you're observing as well?
I usually do, yes.
I noticed that a lot of the entries that you make in eBird are very similar, if not identical, to the kinds of entries you make in Feeder Watch. People want to start out gently. Mm-hmm. Participating in Cornell Labs Feeder Watch is a great way to get started.
Exactly.
It helps you to identify birds while they're a little more stationary than they might be out in other circumstances.
Feeder Watch is a good program for beginners, and you can look at the birds at your feeder, and you're entering the same sort of information. Exactly. It goes into eBird, and even when I do my own feeders, that's entered in the Feeder Watch and eBird at the same time. Yep.
Good, thank you. Also, just one question about your own birding. Have you ever been to Frog Bay Tribal National Park?
Where is that?
It's 3 miles past Bayfield at the Red Cliff Reservation. It's an old growth forest. It's open for birding.
Yes, I have been there. I didn't know that. I couldn't remember that was the name. It's a new one, isn't it? Yeah, relatively new, within the last 10 years or so. Yes?
With all of us being a little more challenged with our vision,
Could you comment?
And hearing, by the way.
Well,
yes.
okay, but could
Yeah.
you comment a little bit more on which of these apps are best for identifying birds from sound?
Any one of those would be great. There are a couple apps that supposedly identify birds by sound. So recording the sound and then identifying. Sound is tricky because it's hard to get a pure sound out of a bird. Birds have multiple sounds that they make, overlapping sounds. I had a friend that was working on that. It's very difficult. So I don't know how good the apps are that identify birds by sound. You have to become good at identifying by sound. Yeah, there's two senses. It's not only seeing them, but also hearing them is really important. And you can write them down and submit them if you just hear them, too. Yes.
The leucistic birds.
Yes.
Biologically, is that what we call albino?
No, it's different than albino because albino.
They're both white.
True, but not all white. An albino, a true albino, is eyes white, beak white, feet white, as well as feathers. This only affects the feathers, so it's called leucistic.
So it's only birds.
I don't know if it's only in birds. I only am aware of it in birds. I don't know if other animals can have. It is true that other animals can be. Squirrels, leucistic? Yes, okay. Other species as well.
But we call white squirrels albino.
If they're totally white, yes. Well, if you look at them and the eyes are red and everything has to be white to be albino. That's my understanding.
Is there a website for that's something like the Wisconsin Breeding Bird Survey? And do you participate in that at all?
Yes, I
It's
did.
separate?
Yeah, I did. That ended this past year, and it was a 5-year program, and I did participate in that. And they're putting the information together now to produce a book, the 2nd edition, I believe. And I don't know what's out there right now. I suspect because it'll take some time to work on the actual book itself. It'll take a little bit of time. So, if you no, I did, and yeah, there was a special site that there was a special thing on eBird. eBird helped us keep track of the Wisconsin breeding bird activity. So it was all from that. And the old book, they had to do it all by paper and all that, yeah. The first edition. It should come out, I say, within a year. Yep.
Can you recommend any sites or apps for identifying herps, frogs, toads, and snakes?
Supposedly, iNaturalist does all those things. I don't know specifically. I don't have an app for that. You could do a search on iTunes or where that is for snakes and frogs identification. But supposedly iNaturalist will do that too. I'm going to try all those various species and see if it works. But they're supposed to be across the whole animal and plant kingdom. So
Thank you.
That's all I know. Carolyn?
Since you're such a birder, have you got birding hotspots in the U.S. that you would recommend, like Point Pelee or Texas or something?
I haven't done a lot of traveling for birding sites. What's the one in Ohio? Help me out here. There's one right on the north coast of Ohio before they go across. I've forgotten the name of it now. So Point Pelee, that would be great, of course. Any jumping off point sites where they have to migrate across a body of water, they have to go across Lake Erie, is it, in northern Ohio? And they build up there before they go. They need a lot of food to make it across the lake, so they'll settle there for a few days, eat a lot of food, and then go across. Certainly during the winter, the southern coast of Texas, there's great spots there for seeing a lot of our birds because they migrate down there and spend the winter there, or they may go into Costa Rica is a great place to go. certainly some of the South American countries that have all these different species. There's so many different habitats in these countries, from top of the mountain all the way down to, seacoast and stuff like that. So I'm sure if you Googled birding hotspots in the U.S., you'd come up with good sites. Yeah.
Anybody else? In that case, why don't you join me in thanking Chuck for his presentation?
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Fun.
And we'll give him a token of our thanks, which is a portfolio with the Retirement Association logo on the front. Thank you very much.
There we go.
Please don't forget to turn in your evaluation at the back of the room. And anybody who's interested in having a little guide to the bird display on the next level down, come on up here afterwards, and we'll go down and see the birds and the examples of feathers.